Now you might see the title of this video and think that Magnus Carlsen is playing some lower rated player, toying with some candidate master, but no, this is Dimitry Andreikin, a top 20 in the world player, World Cup runner-up, twice Russian champion, world junior champion previously. This is serious chess, and Magnus, as we're going to see, he is giving peace odds here. Now, of course, he starts with this subpar defense here. The modern defense gives white the center. This is title Tuesday, 21st of November, early event, 3 minutes on the clock, as you can see on the left, and they get a second back per move. That's known as increment. So we now see knight f6, and this is the Norwegian defense or North Sea defense, or known as the Norwegian rat if e5 is played, forcing knight h5, g4, knight g7, it gets crazy. But we didn't see that this game. We get knight c3, the Norwegian rat declined, so Magnus does fight for the centre now. The pawn pushes on and Magnus centralises the knight. Now you can already change the pawn structure. The computer likes that one, but bishop d3 selected instead, developing with tempo, so Magnus shatters the pawns, but this one does now support the center, opens some lines for white, and c5 from Magnus. Very principled, striking at this connect 3 in the center. We get h3 now played, preparing knight f3 but not allowing bishop g4. Now knight c6, knight f3, and a committal move from Magnus. He pushes on, fixes the pawn structure, but wants to potentially target this one in the future. Maybe rumble these pawns as well. So the bishop drops back to e2, and now Magnus just goes his own way here. So you should go bishop g7, look for f6, but Magnus goes bishop f5, very provocative, because what about g4? Then after castles, he goes e6. Magnus Carlsen out here giving peace odds because g4, bishop e4, knight g5, f3 on the way. The computer hates it, and now Magnus, he's like this plow addict, right? He's twitching. I haven't yet played pawn h5. Here he goes. He throws it down the board. He can't help himself. He goes pure reverse plow here, plowing this pawn down the board, looking for counterplay, but it's terrible. f3 comes. Look at the evaluation bar. It's like 3 pawns better for white already, because a piece is worth 3 pawns, right? You're about to lose a piece. So bishop e7 played, targets that knight, h4 supports it, best move, and you might be thinking, this is what Magnus is looking for. Take here, sure drop that one, but then rook takes, look at the pressure on the knight, these squares covered, but no, the knight crashes through on f7. You are dead as black. Your position crumbles. You can't do that. So Magnus doesn't open the file. He goes queen a5, best move, targeting the base of the chain, but classy from Andreikin. Just covering that pawn. He's still got this in the pocket. Magnus takes here to force open the h file for his rook. You know, bishop doesn't want to capture, leave this pawn, but now we see Magnus take, this one recaptures, he opens the h-file, bishop takes, and goes rook h7 to cover f7 and potentially look to double soon. But there's no two ways about it. He is a piece down for a pawn here against a super grandmaster. So we get king g2 played, queen a4 now from Magnus, looking to keep this queen honest, pressuring the c2 pawn. Now queen b1 hits b7, so castles queenside. We get queen b2, classy manoeuvring from Andreikin, because after the rook doubles, he now can challenge the file. We get captures, 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 captures. I'm out here doing my best Agadmator impression. Now we get knight e7, and let's take stock, because Magnus should just be dead in the water here. But because this is such a bad bishop, it's his only reason for not being just lost instantly. You know, imagine if that was a knight here or something. So Andreikin, he starts bringing in the king. Magnus takes care of this pawn weakness because he wants to march his king to the base of the chain, protects that pawn. White doing the same. Look at this classy maneuvering. The king comes to the square where the bishop just covered, protects this pawn, and now watch how Andreikin bounces round that bad bishop, finally getting them in the right setup. And here, after the king steps back, he covers the a-pawn. Here comes the bad bishop, finally hits a more decent square as it bounces round into f6. What a manoeuvring game. Both players now down to about 30 seconds. Queen a5 from Magnus, so he's looking for tactics. That's why Andreikin ducks this one by moving away the king. We get king d7, queen a1, now looking for some invasion. So queen a3 from Magnus, looking to keep that pawn honest. So king d2 covers the pawn, and now Magnus goes b5. It's as if he's the one pushing for the win. So queen h1 played, looking to invade, come down here, do some nasty stuff. King c7, Magnus gets his running shoes on, and now this is where everything just explodes. You know, amazingly, the best move here is bishop g7 or bishop d1, some kind of waiting move so that after b4 you're prepared to go queen f3, cover the weakness. But we see queen h7 played, really natural, going for counterplay, but look at the evaluation bar. It's down to zeros. The position's level. How does Magnus do this? It's like some Houdini stuff. He's a piece down. So we get b4 played, and look at this counterplay. It's ridiculous. The queen takes with check. The king hides out here. The knight, an amazing defender of the king, covering this square from any bishop checks. So now the pawn captures. There was tons of pressure on c3. You'd love to bring the knight into the attack, but you can't leave the protection of this square. You get mated. So queen takes check. The king steps back. Check. Now the king steps up. Is Magnus going for a repetition? No, he goes c3. He starts pushing for a win. Just incredible. And now the best move here is to take the pawn. However, looks so unnatural, low on time. You allow the check, then the check, king goes, bishop drops with check. You know, how would this be the best move? Well, actually, white doesn't have any kind of knockout blow here. Sorry, black. So should be roughly perpetual. I mean, the lines go on, but there's always counterplay against this king. So, okay, that was the way to go. But the king came to d3, and now Magnus has a knockout blow, mate in 4 with queen e1, because it threatens queen d2 check, also protects the pawn, and there's actually no good way to stop that without just sacrificing pieces for white. Just incredible. But Magnus misses it. He goes knight b4 check in the time trouble, and now the king shouldn't take the pawn, but it does take the pawn, but it's all quite bad. So you should step here, the computer says, but then there's the knight c2 check stuff, the position rumbles on, and the c pawn starts running. So even this should be good for black. The king can march all the way in. It's just crazy. One sample line here, right? So coming back, this one best, but pawn taken, but it now allows mate in 4. And just before the big reveal, if you've enjoyed this one, do please smash that like button. Massively helps me out, and consider subscribing to never miss a future video if you haven't already. So the finish here is queen takes c2 with check, supported by the knight, which now drops. It's sacrificed, but the black king has the opposition, supporting this pawn push. The king staggers back. Check. It can't retreat. The pawn blocks the retreat square. It has to come forward. It's lured into the trap, and that finishes it. Checkmate. How does Magnus do it? And these are the results of the tournament on screen here for another incredible game from the man himself. Check out the video on screen, and I hope to see you again soon. Cheers.